Hello and welcome or welcome back. This video will focus on chapters 21 to 25 of the novel For the Life of Laetitia by Mo Hodge. If you have been here before, you know that we focus on the characters, setting, themes, devices if there are any, quotes if there are any important ones, and a summary. So we get straight into chapter 21. Our characters in this chapter are Miss Velma and Anjani. The setting is La Puerta at home and at school. Laetitia is faced with extreme frustration as her father has forbidden her from returning home. A sorrowful Miss Velma conveys the news on Friday morning after Laetitia has already packed her bags. At school, she tries to think of ways to go home. She wonders whether she should ask Marceline for help, but remembers that Ma told her only to go there if she has an emergency. She recalls Ma's story about Marceline once kicking a woman for calling her a mule and taunting her for not having children. Laetitia eventually decides to visit her that weekend. She admits that her bad situation is nothing compared to Anjani's. Midterms are coming up and Anjani is lost as she's been frequently absent. Laetitia lends her some textbooks. Some devices we have here, contrast. We have the difference between Anjani's life and Laetitia's life. Although Laetitia is going through a difficult situation, she mentions that it's nothing compared to what Anjani is going through. Storytelling with that story about Marceline kicking the woman. And there's also some humor right there. Themes, we have women in society. Again, Marceline refuses to be the stereotypical kind of woman. She's her own person. She doesn't believe you must have children and you must live to serve a man. And we have the power and authority that Mr. Cephas is trying to exert. I did not really get any quotes here that are worth memorizing, but if you find any, you can just highlight them in your own book and remember them to use in an essay. Okay, chapter 22. Characters Miss Velma, Mr. Cephas, and her little brother Michael. Setting is La Puerta at home. Laetitia is completing her homework while daydreaming about what everyone at home might be doing. She hears a vehicle and hopes that Uncle Leroy and Jai have come to rescue her. Unfortunately, it is her father who has returned home earlier than usual. He makes small talk with her, then reprimands Michael when he creeps in. The family has dinner, and instead of going out, Mr. Cephas stays home. Laetitia thinks it is to make sure she doesn't escape. The next day, he scolds Michael again and leaves after a while. Laetitia decides to make her way to Marceline. Themes here, we have love and family relationships, power and authority, and fear. Michael is scared of his father, and it's clear that the father is trying to scare Laetitia as well. Don't really see any devices here and no quotes worth memorizing, but that's just my opinion. You might find some when you review the chapter. Chapter 23, characters Marceline, and the setting is Marceline's house. Marceline welcomes Laetitia and they have a long conversation. She refers to Laetitia's father as that old nastiness and asks if she is being treated well. Laetitia explains how frustrated she is that she cannot go home for the weekend. Marceline also expresses her displeasure. Later, they pick up breadfruit and some herbs to make lunch. She encourages Laetitia to keep being persistent as she has the wonderful opportunity to educate herself. Themes women in society. We have nature, friendship, compassion. You can see that a friendship is developing between Marceline and Laetitia, and also that Marceline is quite compassionate towards Laetitia's situation. You know that she's a woman who doesn't really want to concern herself with children, but she accepts Laetitia with arms wide open. So, chapter 24, our characters are Anjani, Mr. Tiwari, and some of the students in the class. The setting is school. The midterms have begun, and Anjani arrives late to Spanish. Mr. Tiwari isn't paying attention to the student, so Laetitia quietly shares her answers. After break, Anjani throws up. This causes them to arrive late to mathematics, their math exam. By the end of the week, the results are in. Mrs. Lopez publicly humiliates Marlon and Anjani for their low scores. Letitia receives her results last, 98%. Later, Mrs. Lopez pulls her aside and tells her that she is way above those other children. So she's trying to say that Letitia should probably stop hanging around Anjani because she will bring her down. However, Letitia doesn't care about this. She's not trying to be friends with Mrs. Lopez. Some themes here: friendship, compassion, of course, that is between Anjani and Letitia. Then you have the power and authority from Mrs. Lopez, the circus horse. Chapter 25. Characters: Mr. Cephas, Miss Velma, and the setting is home in La Puerta. On Thursday evening, Letitia excitedly packs her bags and imagines that everyone back home would be proud of her midterm results. Mr. Cephas arrives early. He asks Miss Velma to fetch Letitia so he can have a chat with her. His tone is authoritative and confrontational as he asks her why she's in bed reading while Miss Velma is in the kitchen working. He asks her if she is going to be a worthless woman, then says that she cannot go home for the weekend. So yet another weekend Letitia will have to spend in that house in La Preta. Themes here, we have women in society. Mr. Cephas wants to teach Letitia that her place is in the home, in the kitchen. She should be there serving the men, cleaning up, washing the dishes, whatever it is that he thinks women should do. And power and authority. Devices, although I did not type it here, but I'm seeing a bit of irony in that Mr. Cephas asks his daughter if she is going to be a worthless woman. But when you look at him, he is a definition of a worthless man. He doesn't help around the house. He did not care for Letitia for the first few years of her life. He did not provide. He's just like what Miss Mazeline called him, that nastiness. He's really not fulfilling his role, not even as a man should. So you can consider this one. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to type them below. If you have any essays you'd like me to check, or you have any questions that you don't want to type in the comment section, you can email ingbsolutions@gmail.com and I'll be happy to respond. Okay, see you next time for chapters 26 to 30.